So I'm just going to show you the rough idea first. This is the goal, to be something like this. How not to use a chair. And a couple of things, you know, that we can think about when we're setting up for this is you do still want something under your lower back. You do still want a bit of padding if you're, you know, good carpet, or a couple of yoga mats if your carpet's a bit crap like mine. You also want to have your knees. So I've got many things. You also want to have your thighs as vertical as they can be. So you can see, I don't know if you can see because of the sort of 2-dimension of the screen, how I get onto the chair is I sit very close to it. So I've got my bum really close to it, so that when I lie down on my mat, my legs can't go, you know, the chair is now in the way. And so then I can swing my legs up onto them. That way, I'm already quite vertical in the thigh bones. And that's what we want. But for me, you see, this chair is too short for me, for my long bones. So I've got a various things. So I could try a cushion. I could sort of put a cushion on and go, oh yeah, no, that's good. Now my lower legs feel supported. Now they're feeling supported. And your normal book height is quite likely going to be all wrong. So you'll probably need something less under your head. If, you know, I'd be okay with nothing at all. So see if you can shuffle away and get yourselves a little set up. Even, yeah. See, the other thing I've got here is sort of a bit of a fluffy blanket and a rolled up blanket. You know, it's you want to be able to, and this is for everyone, you want to be able to leave your legs alone so that they don't feel like you have to hang on to keep them there in any way, so that they're not rolling, they're not, you might find that your feet fall outwards, and that's fine. This is that half the class taken up with us all getting comfortable. And quite right too. And as I said, the book height might change, because the higher our legs are, the less books we tend to need. So yeah, that's great. That's better. Yeah, okay, so everyone's good there. And already, when you're, you know, when you've settled and you've some of you have been there a little while now, you'll be feeling, you'll be noticing the weight of your own legs. And what we don't get in semi-supine, which we get in this semi-supine with a chair, is this lovely ability to be able to let go in the lower legs, in the calves. So as long as everything's comfortable elsewhere, and do feel free to keep flickering your thoughts around your body to check in with yourself, your neck and your shoulders and arms and things. We're actually going to start by thinking about the weight of those lower legs, the calves, the shin bones. There's, you know, you've got your tibia and fibula in the lower leg bones, all resting, because that's what's sitting on your chair now, or your cushions. And it's a good time to check in and see what you do with your calves, because actually they are muscles that get a little bit overworked. We won't go into that today. Don't digress. So allowing the calves to rest, allowing the heavy shin bones to sort of squish through those calves, resting down into the surface that they're resting on. I'd like you even to think about the fronts of your shins, the muscles at the front, you don't even think about the shin muscle just on the outer edge of those front shin bones, and seeing if you can think of them softly lengthening. And they're going to lengthen down through your ankles and out through your toes. The shin muscles lengthening down through the ankles and out through your toes, so that the front ankle joint, the front of your ankle joint, can release, can soften, can let go. Sort of nothing happening there. And like all of our Alexander positions of mechanical advantage, we will, you feel free to shuffle and fidget at any point. Don't suffer in silence if your body doesn't love some sort of aspect of this position. And as we let the lower legs, we give them up to the support of the chair, around the kneecap, backs of the kneecap, all the usual places we can release. What we can find is that the weight of those upper thighs, the weight of the thigh bones, can indeed rest back into the hip sockets. But let's give the heads of thigh bones some space. Let's direct, think, ask for the pelvis to widen. And you can think those heads of thigh bones away from each other, or you can think your sit bones away from each other. As if you're opening the pelvis and welcoming the weight of your thighs, dropping through it. And just to clarify, the weight of your thigh bones drops through to the ground behind you. So if you are quite sensitive in the sacrum, in the back of the pelvis, in the lower back, you might need a little bit of a movement, a little bit of a fidget at any point, and you're welcome to. Equally, if you are finding that it's quite hard work on the back of the pelvis and the sacrum, investigate further up your back, somewhere around the bra line, asking that to release. And breathe. And relax. And do nothing. Let the legs go. And in your mind, we're going to divide your thighs, in each thigh, into 4 sections. And the first section we're going to think about in your left thigh and your right thigh is the back panel of thigh. And that runs from the back of your knee all the way down the back of the thigh to the sit bone. And I'll have said something to you before this time, something like, think of a paintbrush, a wide paintbrush, being painted down through the back of your leg, from the back of the knee all the way down through to the sit bone. And what we're really saying here is allow your hamstrings to lengthen from the backs of your knees all the way down through to your sit bones. And then we're going to go to the outside edge of your thighs, because we've divided these into these 4 panels, these 4 sections. So from the outside edge of your knees, check in with those first. Sometimes I think to myself, as I'm on the outside edge of a left knee or right knee, that I'm sort of unlocking something. I'm undoing a little catch. And then I can think again of that wide paintbrush, brushing down the outside edge of the thigh, all the way down through to the big outer head of the thigh bone, the knobbly bit of hip you can feel. So thinking in a sweeping, releasing, wide, letting go from the outside edge of the knee down through the side panel of the thigh, one thigh and then the other. And when you get down to the hip joint, that greater trochanter sort of area, ask for something to release there. Ask for the weight of those thigh bones to travel further through you and into the ground. Almost imagining that the pelvis has its own lightness rather than heaviness to it. And then we'll think of our next panel, our next leg panel, and we're going to go on the inside of the thighs, from the inside edge of the knees, and we will check in with the knees again. Something can release. You could think your way around the kneecap. You could think of those kneecaps springing up, releasing up towards the ceiling in that more traditional sense. And then imagining or thinking of this wide paintbrush sweeping down the inner thigh, the inside leg measurement, as it were, of your inner thighs. And this area is often over tightened, but interestingly not worked appropriately. So we've lost the support frequently for our own pelvis by having too much tension through the inner thigh and the groin. Investigate what's going on for you. Is it tight through the groin? Can you imagine that there's a flow of energy going from your knees down the inside of your thighs all the way to the groin and through the groin and into the floor behind you, as if you are pouring the tension of your inner thighs into the floor behind you. As you do so, those sit bones can let go again. They don't need to hang on. As you're releasing through the inner thighs, you might think of the sit bones widening, moving away from each other, that welcoming openness through the pelvis again. How's your lower back? Keep that awareness of the lower back rib cage breathing and moving to keep the back muscles alive. The lower back ribs dropping back into width, the air pushing out the rib cage and allowing it to release back in again as you breathe. And then finally, the front of the thighs, those really powerful quads that, oh my goodness, do all that work and get switched on far too frequently, more than they're even needed. And of course, we want that to soften. We want that all to lengthen, in fact. And this time we're going to start at the knee, but we're actually going to start all the way over your kneecap, where your knee meets your shin bone, where your kneecap meets your shin bone. So say hello to where your knee meets your shin bone on your right leg, where your knee meets your shin bone on your left leg. And again, we're going to unlock something. And in fact, as you undo something around those knees, those shins might just rest a little bit more into the surface that they're resting on. Those lower legs might find a little bit more gravity, weight. And then from the sort of front of your knees, I suppose this is the front of the knees, we're going to think in a sweeping direction, back over the kneecaps and all the way down through the fronts of your thighs in towards your hip flexor joints. the anterior crests, the hip crests. And because the legs are as vertical as you can have them in this moment, you can really imagine that the muscles are just sliding off the bones, sliding away from the bones, that there is a movement within a movement that's going on through the front of your thighs. And again, letting the weight, any kind of weight that you feel coming into the pelvis, let it go all the way through you, all the way through to the back of you and into the ground. Let the weight travel through the pelvis. Soften the belly, widen the back. Let the weight of the front of the thighs drop through and into the belly and further through your lower back and into the ground. As the lower back ribs drop back into rest and width. If you've got the space, I'd like you to just fold out your arms so that they're down by you but palm up. You've just changed your arm position. We're Mary in the church, not Jesus in Rio, Mary in the church. Letting the forearms rest into the ground, letting the elbows rest into the ground. Feeling that you've got a sort of a little bit of an anchor. You feel a bit secure now with the arms being part of the program as well. I'd like you to gently start to move your pelvis. And I don't mind how you move your pelvis. You could pitch up one waist, so shorten through the right and lengthen through the left, so that the pelvis is rocking in some sort of weird slidey way from side to side. You could move the knees a bit so that you've got sort of a bit of a thigh joint, a head of thigh bone rolling in the hip socket sort of movement. Less movement through the pelvis, but something is happening. You could allow the pelvis to rock and roll backwards and forwards. Just a little, don't overdo things, don't start gripping and tightening. But we're just having this sort of rolly around kind of movement through the pelvis. How is it feeling? You're investigating your own body, your own holding, releasing. How does that feel? Finding your comfort, finding your ease. Using your arms as an anchor into the floor, using the weight of your arms as a sort of a down force to lighten the rest of the body, lighten through the rib cage, the collarbones. And then when you've sort of wiggled and fidgeted through the pelvis, you can let yourself go back into stillness and see how that all feels. And then you might fancy having a little head roll from side to side because we're going to start to come up. But I think it's nice to do this very slowly, more even slower than the normal semi-supine position. So letting the head roll from side to side. So then from your lying down position, you'll want to roll on your side, but I would first of all bring your knees in towards you. If you're flexible enough to put your feet sort of on the edge of the front of the chair, that'll give you a chance to decide which way you're going to roll over onto. And in reality, wherever you are is probably going to dictate that very clearly. If you're on a chair, you can normally easily just kind of roll and place a foot on the ground. Or if you're comfortable to do so, you can just roll entirely on your side. I'm going to just let you all just get to your own place. Don't rush, do stay on your side for a minute. Do let your body rest and find your freedom in the neck and the back. And in your own time, you can work out the next bit. We will come up and have a chat, so don't rush. There's no rush ever. I'm so over rushing. That's so summer, not winter. And you might feel that you need to, have a little stretch or a fidget elsewhere, maybe the upper back or the arms, but I'm hoping that you feel on the whole quite nice. It's a long time to be on the ground. And so I'm hoping that everyone's backs are feeling okay. And I'm impressed that nobody fell asleep. The process that we've just done, the legs on top of the chair, is a really good tool as well. And you can obviously share this with anyone that you know that might like this. It's a really good tool for anyone who's got any kind of pelvic issues as well, because as you're allowing the legs to release and the abdomen to release, all of the deep, intricate musculature and all the stuff within the pelvis is also settling back into itself. It's really good for anything to do with pelvic floor or digestive issues. It's really good with anything to do with the pelvis. It's fantastic for. And if you feel that there's anything that needs releasing, that was in fact quite traumatic or a lot of pain or anything like that, when you finish the process, it's quite nice to wrap your pelvis in a scarf, or if you've got the time, to lie down with a blanket on you. But if you haven't, to actually just take a scarf and wrap it around your hips to give yourself a sense of safety and security. Because this area, the pelvic area, whenever we do anything with that, we're tapping into the part of us that needs the most reassurance, because it's our foundation, it's our security and safety and our foundation. And I would just like to add that. So that's my health and safety. It's a different sort of health and safety. It's more to do with your mental health. But take care and give yourself a bit of TLC, because anything that's released through the pelvis, it tends to have a little bit of trauma attached to it. But for now, just for these last few minutes, we're going to think our way through the body again, just as we did at the beginning, to give ourselves that opportunity for rest, to lengthen, to widen, to find our inner space again. And we're going to start with the neck. And asking for the neck to soften, for the jaw to soften. So that the mouth is closed and the tongue is resting somewhere in your mouth. So that the teeth are not touching, if possible, but the lips are closed. To allow the base of the back of your skull to widen. And the base of the back of your neck to widen. To release through the front of the neck and allow the whole column of the neck to drop back towards the floor into length. As that does so, your head releases, pivots forwards on the spine. A gentle tilt of direction and intention. Neck free, head forward and out. Back to lengthen and widen. Allow those shoulders to rest. Encouraging them to do nothing. Ungripping under the armpits to allow the tops of the arms to direct away from each other. The right arm resting, the left arm resting, the tops of the arms going away from each other. Allowing that widening through the upper back and softening and widening through the chest. Organizing the head, neck, back coordination creates an safety that the pelvis can let go. Take your mind down through into the abdomen, soften the belly, widen the back. And breathe. Allow those lower ribs, the flexibility and the freedom to release out to the sides, to the back of you, to the front of you as you breathe. If you think it would be nice for your body, let the leg slide out, followed by your other leg. To take a moment, fully laid out, extended on the floor. Check in with the small of your back. Check that that hasn't tightened in response to the leg movement. And that in fact you could leave the upper back rim of your pelvis alone. The upper back rim of the pelvis releasing into width. The small of the back softening. The heavy weight of the legs resting into the ground. As if there's a lovely flowing energy moving through your belly, through the pelvis, through the legs, all the way out, pouring out through the backs of your heels. Perhaps lengthening those tight calves and releasing along the Achilles tendon. Notice how you don't have to do anything but think. Let the crown of your head release away from your heels. To allow your body to relax into length. And breathe. Allowing the lower back ribs to rest back into width. Softening the belly, letting the front of the rib cage go. Full breathing. From your armpits down to your waist. Unlock the top of your spine, that nodding joint up by your ears. Send it as a thought, an intention. I no longer hang on at the top of my spine. I no longer hang on at the base of my spine. I allow the top of my spine to be free, spacious. I allow my head to release out through the crown. I allow the base of my spine to release, to soften, to let go. I allow the spine to lengthen. So as always, I'm going to leave you here, resting on your floor. And as always, when you want to get up, you'll think of your mindful, lengthening, widening body. Take your time, because each step away from your mat is further away from your awareness. See if you can not let that happen. And I'll see you next week. I think we still have one more left in this block. Bye for now.